What is offensive to do in the US but not in other countries? Saying the word cunt. Edit. I am well aware that cunt is still an offensive word in England. Calling someone a cunt is still an insult. Americans just seem to be more hesitant to use it, whereas in places like here in Australia, it's very common. Offering an 18-year-old a drink. Leaving kids in their strollers outside the shops, restaurants, etc. That one threw me for a loop. Topless women. I was in Jamaica last month with my family. Tons of people from all around the world. Anyway, at the pool, a lady from Italy took off her top while sunbathing. My family made a big deal about it, and it was embarrassing. I wouldn't consider this offensive, but it's definitely not polite to slurp your soup at the dinner table in America. But in Japan, slurping is a sign of appreciation. Not leaving a tip. We don't tip in Australia. The first time I was given a tip, I just looked at the guy funny. Also saying cunt. We drop it in conversation here in Australia regularly. I think talking about how much you make from work. Not smiling at random people. Talk to people in imperative form of speech. In most Slavic countries it's a common thing to do because we build our sentences like this. And if you see the Russians that seems rude or unpolite, they just talk as they used to. Eating certain foods. One country's delicacy might be an American's nightmare fuel. I'm looking at you, ballot. Not give a tip on a restaurant bill. Sitting through the national anthem. In the UK, pretty much the only time you will hear the anthem is at the start of an international football game. No one knows the words or gives a shit about the dreary old funeral dirge. We certainly don't stand up for it and put our hands over our hearts. Staying at the restaurant after you ate your meal. Letting young children play naked in a public water fountain when it's hot outside. Commenting on one's weight. I can't tell how annoying that shit is even if I'm in good physical condition. Sit or stand too close to some stranger. Saying the N-word. Having grown up with rap music and the fact that African immigrants are a really small minority in Denmark, it never really had the same ring to it as I know it has in the States. Edit. The N-word ending with an A. When paying at a cash register and putting the money on the counter instead of handing it to the cashier, it's considered rude in America but is normal in other countries. Using metric. Waving your hand to a waiter or waitress in a restaurant to get their attention is very normal in the Netherlands, but heard that it's not done in the US. Is this true? Speak a foreign language amongst yourselves. People here get all bent out of shape if you have a private conversation in a language that isn't theirs. Edit. Half of these responses are "this doesn't happen," and the other half are "this happened to me." Well, this relates to the question and it's also the reverse. Tipping. Not tipping in the US is seen as offensive, but literally anywhere else no one cares. Tipping in some European and Asian countries is seen as offensive, but it's the right thing to do in the US. Dogging. It'll get a few sideways glances and potentially an audience in the UK, but put on a list in the US. Nudity and curse words on TV media. Calling teachers by their first names. Edit. I guess this really depends on where you are. Breastfeeding in public. Eat a kinder surprise. To even remotely suggest that maybe access to guns isn't necessary in day-to-day life. I suppose calling your friends pedos nonsense. England is weird at times. Kiss on the cheek as a greeting. Cultural appropriation. Other countries are happy to share their culture, but Americans get their panties in a twist if a white person wears a sombrero because they like it. Prostitution, at least in my country it's legal, so? Maybe I misinterpreted the question? Dunno lol. Express the opinion that average citizens shouldn't be allowed to have weapons capable of rapid mass murder. Expecting the person who invited you to their birthday dinner to pay for your food. In Ukraine, if you invite people out to eat for a special event celebration, you pay the whole tab yourself. I've lived in America for the majority of my life, so I pay for my own food, but I believe that if you invite people to a restaurant to celebrate a birthday, promotion, whatever, then you should be the one paying for their meals. Maybe I'm in the wrong, idk. Driving on the left side of the road. Malaysia have 4 wives. Criticizing religious beliefs, no matter how loony they may be. Not really offensive. But if you are alone and you take a taxi cab, you sit in the front seat next to the driver. Not in Murica. Smacking and/or slurping food. My brother is an expat living in South Korea, and he and his wife got into a fight while she was pregnant because he said his child would not grow up to eat like that. My Nepali friend was eating dinner with my kids and me the other day and acted like I was being an ass for calling my 11-year-old out for smacking. Also, eating certain foods with your hands. Not paying for healthcare. Burping without saying excuse me.